Привіт! Це подкаст «Коли все має значення». Моє ім'я Наталка Гуменюк, а зі мною моя співрозмовниця і колега
Ангеліна Карякіна. Всім привіт!
Ліно, представ свою співрозмовницю і гостю. Це той випадок, коли ми прям спішили з записом і тим, щоб все було дуже актуально.
Я представлю гостю, яку свого часу ти мені представила. Це Аліна Раду, засновниця, керівниця розслідувального медіа незалежного молдовського «Ziarul de Garda», яке перекладається українською як вартова газета, чи газета на варті, чи газета вартових. І вони дійсно є такими. Це одне з найсильніших видань Молдови, саме розслідувальних. Насправді, звичайно, ми говорили з Аліною про результати парламентських виборів. І виходимо ми якраз от на цьому тижні, тому що свіжі результати, є про що поговорити. Але говорили ми, звісно, про контекст, в якому відбулися ці вибори, і про роботу Аліни і її команди, власне, видання, як одного з факторів цих виборів, тому що вони зробили минулого року і цього року продовжили цю роботу. Надзвичайно глибоке, велике розслідування про роль і залучення активне Росії в ці вибори, про що, звісно, що Аліна окремо розказала, це дуже цікаво.
Я трошечки зроблю спойлер, що їхня журналістка фактично всередину зайшла цього ботосвіту, там влаштувалася працювати, тому це дуже цікаве розслідування.
Минулого року вони зробили розслідування на службі в Кремля, і це було розслідування тієї попередньої кампанії, президентської і референдуму. В Молдові також був референдум щодо ЄС, і вони дійсно потрапили в середовище цих так званих активістів цієї мережі, не просто проросійських активістів, діячів, я не знаю, як їх назвати, а російських, тому що вони цим розслідуванням довели, що гроші і зарплати людей, які працювали на цих виборах і в цій кампанії, сплачувалися напряму з Росії. І ця мережа належить проросійському молдовському олігарху Ілону Шору. Вони, власне, послідовно це довели. Але найсмішніше, і ми теж з Аліною про це говоримо, що друге розслідування, яке вийшло от зараз, вже в цю кампанію, до журналістки, яка брала участь в попередньому розслідуванні, яку, звісно, було викрито, яка викрила себе, свою ідентичність в першому розслідуванні минулого року, ця мережа тих самих проросійських, російських активістів звернулася сама. Вони їй просто подзвонили і сказали: «Ой, добрий день, ви в нашій базі, ми хочемо, щоб ви з нами працювали на цій кампанії, чи ви хочете, ми вас будемо навчати, як поширювати інформацію і працювати», і вони так і кажуть, це прямою мовою. Я подивилася це розслідування в інформаційній війні. І, звісно, вона погодилась і записувала все. Довели вони те саме, що попереднє розслідування так само довело, тобто втручання Росії незаконне в ці вибори, організації протестів і так далі, і так далі. Але, звісно, нам цікаво було поговорити, а чому тоді, попри всі ці намагання і просто якісь неймовірні гроші, все-таки перемогла проєвропейська партія чинної президентки Маї Санду. Ми говорили про це, ми говорили про ефект і вплив війни Росії в Україні на молдован, на те, як вони сприймали взагалі свій вибір стратегічний, про те, як ставляться до українців, як змінилася економіка внаслідок війни, про багато інших речей.
Я додам, що ми працювали з Аліною Раду доволі плідно з 2015 року, навіть 2014-го, ми, працюючи на громадському, були в мережі, яка вона так називалася, Russian Language News Exchange, об'єднувала видання з країн пострадянських, які обмінювалися контентом, це видання із Грузії, з Молдови, із Білорусі, і з Росії в тому числі. І я, чесно скажучи, дуже ціную цей проект, тому що це не просто там перетиналися, тобто матеріали громадського виходили в всіх цих країнах, а в Ziarul de Garda особливо. І мені було завжди дуже приємно бачити, що наші тексти, в тому випадку російською мовою, або навіть румунською мовою виходили в друкованому виданні, бо ми їх в друкованому вигляді не бачили. Це завжди було дуже приємно. Додам також, що треба знати про Аліну як про співрозмовницю. Свою кар'єру Аліна починала як авторка сатиричних текстів політичних. Вона автор політичної сатири. І коли ти з нею говориш, ти розумієш, чому вона говорить так просто, але так смішно інколи це звучить, тому що вона писала дуже багато років під псевдонімами такі політичні фельєтони, інколи як анонім, багато людей це знало, але в неї є, чесно кажучи, природній гумористичний талант. Хоча вона справді директорка і головна редакторка цього видання. Маю віддати також належне і сказати кілька речей особистих. Її редакція дуже допомогла мені особисто на початку 22-го, коли мені треба було вивезти частину родини через Молдову. І це той час, коли у всій Молдові немає жодного готелю, жодного номера, і ти живеш в її редакції, і її син цим займається, зустрічає, і це тривало кілька років. Тобто це той рівень підтримки, і скажу, що в її членів її редакції, родичі в Україні, воюють в армії, вони збирають кошти. Це зовсім інший рівень залучення. І є ще одна історія, про яку Аліна дозволила розповідати публічно, бо вона сказала, що нічого в цьому секретного немає, хоча вона, можна сказати, особиста. Ми були свідками, коли вона нам це розказала, а потім підтвердила, що дійсно після зустрічі Зеленського з Трампом в неї стався вперше в житті інфаркт. Вона пережила мікроінфаркт. Це була перша її хвороба на серці. Вони встановили, що погано їй стало саме після цієї ночі. Нічого іншого в її житті не сталося в той момент. І потім вона ще 2 місяці вперше в житті довго лікувалася, тому що ось так болісно наша колега переживає все, що відбувалося і відбувається в Україні. Я з посмішкою про це говорю, але я просто кажу, що це той випадок, коли ти просто дивуєшся такому емоційному залученню.
Зрозуміло, що це дуже серйозна ситуація була, але і вона про це так розповідала, що ти, знаєш, як в людини з гарним почуттям гумором завжди не до кінця зрозуміла, вона жартує чи не жартує. Що це з одного боку і комічна життєва ситуація, а з іншого боку геть не смішно, тому що це дуже серйозна проблема по здоров'ю. Але так, подивившись на те, як Зеленського приймали в Білому домі в лютому, для людини це завершилось серцевим нападом, який тривав в якийсь час. Я, звісно, не могла не спитати Аліну і про її недавній візит в Україну. Вона приїжджала сюди на конференцію розслідувачів і теж поділилася своїми враженнями. Як би це не дивно звучало, вона свій оптимізм від цієї зустрічі повезла назад в Молдову, де вона каже, його якраз і бракувало.
Я додам важливість всього, що сталося в Молдові, скажімо так, з тими результатами позитивними, можна сказати. Бо я з тобою говорю з румунського міста Константа. Це місто неподалік від кордону з Україною, де я буквально була напередодні у найсхіднішій авіабазі НАТО, якщо не врахувати Туреччину, яка частково закриває цей авіапростір і до Чорного моря. Тут 170 кілометрів по прямому до острова Зміїний. Мала нагоду подарувати марки командувачам, але я хочу сказати, що це значення виборів в Молдові, тут обговорюючи з колегами з Румунії, з Болгарії і всього Чорноморського басейну і Балкан, його не можна недооцінювати. Додам хіба це про геть інше, але думаю, що будучи тут, це якраз нагода сказати. Нас часто питають, а чому румуни щось там не збивають? Тому що дрони, які залітають сюди, це зазвичай або з дрони без вибухівки, і вони дуже добре розуміють, коли дрон дешевий, снарядом за 3 мільйони доларів збивати не треба, але мене запевнили, що вони все бачать, люди тут дуже добре обізнані ситуацією, я маю на увазі, і румунські військові. І військові, які тут зараз, це німецький підрозділ, який потім буде замінено британським. Багато речей насправді під контролем, тому що, звісно, ведеться війна проти України на півдні, і росіяни тут не дуже намагаються гратися з країнами НАТО, бо вони тут не так хочуть відволікатися, бо їм є тут що робити, на відміну від Балтійського моря, де вони тестують. Але треба розуміти, що багато в чому Молдова дійсно орієнтується на Румунію, але і в Румунії відбуваються страшні кампанії з дезінформації, вкидів, ботоферм, якихось скамів і якихось інших шахрайських речей, які відбуваються в онлайні, в медіа, для того, щоб підточити, скажімо так, румунську безпеку, а відтоді і Молдову, і весь наш регіон. Тому маленька Молдова, наша сусідня, близька, рідна країна, але я думаю, що дуже добре розбиратися, підтримувати, коли ми можемо, і розуміти, що вона має величезне значення для всього регіону.
Ну що ж, давайте слухати нашу розмову з засновницею розслідувального видання в Молдові «Ziarul de Garda» Аліною Раду.
Ми дуже дякуємо нашим слухачам, вам за ту підтримку, яку ви здійснюєте для цього подкасту, зокрема для роботи наших чудових колег, звукорежисерки Люби Гук і редакторки Іри Лопатіної. І на прохання ваше ми це зробили. Ми створили на сторінці лабораторії журналістики суспільного інтересу не просто сторіночку, де ви можете донатити за реквізитами, але й можливість робити одноразовий донат і регулярний донат. Довелося нам попрацювати над цим, але тепер це можливо. Знаю, що ці донати приходять. Це дуже-дуже нас підтримує. Знаємо, що в Україні багатьох потрібно підтримувати. Але якщо є така змога, щоб ці розмови далі виходили, ми вам неймовірно вдячні. Це дуже надихає.
Alina, thank you so much for talking to us, for finding time. I have to say we were all, of course, watching closely the elections in Moldova. I'm feeling pretty nervous about them. My first question is, how do you feel, about the results? And is there any feeling of relief for you and for your colleagues?
Yes. We were really very much concerned because we had seen how much forces Russia put into Moldovan elections, how much criminal strategies they had to overturn elections and to make people believe that Russia is beautiful and European path is a wrong choice. We had seen how they were paying money and bringing fear to Moldovans and making them to change their minds. So the amount of money was so big that our discussion was, can we win against money? Can the truth win against money? And we were not sure because we live in a poor country and we know people sometimes want money today and maybe the truth tomorrow. But happily, the truth won, the truth prevailed, and the huge Russian money with the huge Russian lies and disinformation and all this aggression didn't win. They lost. We won.
What is the ground of this victory? In other words, what, let's say, secured, if that's the right word, victory for PAS? Because there was a feeling that there's no security in that sense, that the chances are 50-50. But now, looking back afterwards, now after we have the results, what actually led to this victory?
There were plenty of things that helped. We were not sure because every election is somehow unique with the new challenges and with some things that we don't know. So starting from previous elections, we had presidential elections in Moldova last year, and we also had a pro-European referendum. At that moment, it was first time when we documented how people are paid explicitly to vote for the pro-Russian candidate for presidential elections and to vote against the referendum. I think something made the society to wake up after our investigative pieces that were shared and showed and broadcasted by all TV stations, or mainly all TV stations in Moldova, but also by portals. It was a massive share of those stories. The first step was people started to make a huge pressure on police, saying, do something, you have to do something, you have to protect our right to vote, because it was a crime against the right to vote. Previously, the government, together with police, were like, oh, people have to have the freedom and we have not to disturb, because we had paid protests in streets and we had seen these paid pyramids that were distributing this information. But Moldovan government was thinking more about freedom of information, not to disturb the freedom by arresting or blocking some channels, or they didn't want to have any criticism about damaging freedom of expression and damaging freedom of vote and things like that. But after those investigative pieces, police really started to do something, and we had seen in all the next months that police was taking actions about these criminal Russian rings who were training people here, who were distributing fake news and threats against people and things like that. So we really had seen that not only Russia is well organized, and Russia was really well organized with this pyramid. They had structures in all Moldovan raions, in villages. In the capital city, they had many groups, very well structured, working very well. They were contacting those people every single day to tell them what to do. But also Moldovan authorities did something from the other way. Also, I had seen that finally election committee took some steps, because it was a nightmare to see how pro-Moscow guys are registering as candidates, being very corrupt. But again, the election authority was, okay, people have freedom to participate in elections. The specific person is Ilan Shor, who was organizing all this strategy and all the payments. He is also controlling a bank in Russia, and he was distributing money and also controlling all this pyramid. Unfortunately, Ilan Shor stays in Russia. He is a Moldovan citizen, an Israeli citizen too. He works not with only one party in Moldova or not with only one politician. From our investigation, we discovered a network of political parties that are controlled by Shor or are paid by Shor, and it makes the work very difficult, because sometimes people will say, okay, that party maybe works with Shor, but I will vote for another, or I will come with another. So we did a lot of investigative work to show the connection between Shor and different political parties. And most of them were saying, no, we don't have anything with Shor. We are not with Moscow, actually. We are with Europe. So they were lying at all the levels.
Let me quickly explain that you did. Basically, it's not a two-part investigation, it's two investigations. One you did serving Moscow last year, as far as I understand, which won the European Press Prize. And it's about the Russian involvement in the previous campaign. So you infiltrated the network of the so-called pro-Russian activists, the network that was financed by the pro-Russian oligarch, Moldovan oligarch Ilan Shor from Russia, paid directly from Russia to disrupt the elections. And this year you also did a follow-up, right, on this investigation. And funny enough, the journalist who was uncovered in the previous investigation, she was basically invited, right, to the same network. So they didn't even check the identities of the people who were involved. Could you tell me a little bit about the second part, which you did, the recent investigation?
The recent investigation, it's actually started just 3 days after the last elections in November 2024, because after the elections, the Moscow guys, organized by Ilan Shor, were calling the network in Moldova saying, you did a great job, we didn't win, but now we start to prepare better for the parliamentary elections. And by surprise, our colleague who made a great story undercover last year was called by a person in Chisinau saying, hi, we are gathering people again, we start to work again, would you please be with us? Yes, luckily she said yes, and the job started. Why did they do such a wrong movement? I'll tell you, because the order from Moscow is to be massive, to go everywhere, to get everybody. And you are paid if you get more and more people. So some of those people are driven only to get more money, not to analyze who are you bringing to the ring and how honest are those people who are coming to the ring. I think the whole structure understood that most of the people come for money, not for the idea. It was Moscow accepting little by little just to have big numbers, because the guys in Moscow who are near Ilan Shore also get more money if they have a bigger network. So they were working like in Soviet Union for figures.
Does it mean that the part in Moldova, part of the citizens who are indeed like ideologically more pro-Russian or, traditionally more pro-Russian, it means that this part shrinks or this part, doesn't want to vote for Russia? What actually does it mean that the Russians had to spend so much money to go en masse?
I think the Russian war in Ukraine and these crimes in Ukraine anyway made the clarity. People understood that Russia goes somewhere and kills people, innocent people, without any reason to do that. So people started to be afraid of the war. And then Russia changed the message, saying if pro-Europeans win, they will work with Zelensky to bring the war there, without explaining very clear what does it mean.
That's very interesting. My question was, how did the narrative change? It doesn't sound like, Russia is good, Europe is bad anymore. It's more complicated. So what they were telling?
The main fear was they bring war. They understood that people are afraid of war. So they were saying Europe brings war. Then they look at what people care about, and everybody cares about his family, his house, his little personal happiness. And another narrative was gays, LGBT. If Europe comes, they will change sex of every child. And I was really, how, why, where do you? But then they started to develop this because they were following it shocks people, and then they made fakes with Moldovan Prime Minister saying, yes, we develop hospitals to operate children to change their sex. So it was crazy. Then they started just to bring kind of brutal fake. If Europeans come, they will force children are obligated to have sex in the school from 9 years old. It's you can't imagine what kind of mind create this. And another fear specifically for Russian-speaking people was if the Europe comes, they will take your apartment, your land, anything you have, because previously here it was Romania, and yes, historically we are part of Romania. So those Romanians will come and take their land back, and they will take your apartment, everything. So you have to fight. So this was the narrative. Fight for your children, fight for your apartment, for your land. They come to take all of this from you. And some of them, got the message if they are less educated, less access to information. But then another thing that Russia exploited a lot is the freedom to spend money on social media. So Russia was paying massively disinformation messages on Facebook. Because if you put a small message there, maybe nobody will see. But if you pay it all as an advertisement, then it will be very actively staying there. And also they were paying armies of trolls on TikTok. And another problem for all of us, for all democracies, are these algorithms. There are bubbles where some of the Moldovans stay and we as journalists do not know. There are bubbles where some Europeans stay and the society doesn't know. And the bubbles are created by what you are clicking. So if you click once on a fake about that LGBT will change your sex, you are automatically introduced in that bubble and you'll receive more and more content of that, making you more and more aware of that fake problem. From another point of view, because me or another, journalist or anybody from the society that doesn't click on such kind of fake, you are never a member of that bubble. You never get to that bubble. You never have an idea that that bubble exists. And at the end of the day, in those bubbles, first of all, there are many fakes, but then the idea of for whom to vote comes, and different announcement, you have to vote for that guy. So at the end, it may happen that someone will win, but you didn't see him in the society. That guy was only in those bubbles. And this is a big risk for democracy, because in a real society, we see all the politicians, who is saying what, how do they behave, and we may debate on ideas. But with those bubbles, we can't debate on the ideas because we do not have any knowledge about it.
The overall narrative was fear, just for people to feel fear for whatever comes from their pro-European choice.
Yeah, the real topic was, and we showed it in our investigation undercover, the guy from Moscow said, our topic is fear and money. Fear about EU, fear about any development of Moldova with actual pro-European parties, and you are paid well if you work well, if you bring more people to our group, if you come to protest against Europe, if you participate actively in our actions, and if you vote against European candidates. Yeah, fear and money.
You said that the war could play also its role, the Russian war in Ukraine, in the choice of people. How do the Moldovans actually react to the war, to the shellings, to the news that are coming from Ukraine? Because we have seen from our colleagues who are covering the elections, people saying different things, like we don't want to have the same stuff as Ukrainians have. We want to live in peace. Some people were saying we want to be neutral and, we cannot handle any war, so it's better for us to keep quiet. But generally, how does it actually influence the life of Moldovans and the attitudes of Moldovans?
Well, we can't generalize and say that every Moldovan citizen has the same opinion. Of course, those guys who say we don't want the Ukrainian scenario are misinformed by Russia, that say if you go to Europe, you'll have the Ukrainian scenario, and this narrative has this name, Ukrainian scenario. But we have a lot of educated people who say if we stay strong with Europe and with Ukraine, it is the only way to win. It is very clear that if Russia wins Moldovan elections and they enter the Moldovan parliament, they win Moldova without any bomb, without any tanks or military equipment. But then they have an open door to the western part of Ukrainian border, because Moldova has 1,000-something kilometers of border with Ukraine. And also Russia has Transnistrian region, which is still full of guns and full of some military equipment that might be used. And we know that Russia is angry and unhappy that they promised to get Ukraine during 3 days or 3 weeks, and they didn't manage during 3 years. At least they will try to do something bad to Ukraine from Moldovan border. And we know Russia wants Odessa so much, so it is the door to Odessa. But also Russia wants to control, in a way, some border with the EU. And the second part of Moldovan border is with Romania and the European Union. So we knew they want that. And the part of Moldovan people who voted against those parties means they voted against this scenario of Russia to come and control the borders with Ukraine and with EU. So there are, of course, different people who, all of them, do not want war, but not all of them are well informed to understand that Putin comes if you are weak and afraid and don't cooperate with Ukraine and EU. Putin will come only in that case. If you stay strong and if you cooperate and if you understand that today Ukraine is such a well-trained military force because they are trained every day by what happens. They are trained in that real life, and there is no one other army in the whole Europe that is so well-trained. So we have to keep cooperating with those who are very good and with those who are our neighbors.
Yeah, and if you're not united, and we have seen through this last almost 4 years of war that Moldovan president Maia Sandu has developed really good, close, friendly, I would say, relations with President Zelensky. Do you think this is also kind of factor for Moldovans, the way both presidents, treat each other, how frequently they meet, and this general sense of friendship between them? Is this also, part of the spirit in Moldova?
Yes, because I remember when the war started, we didn't know what happens. But the first days, I was really happy and proud to see that each Moldovan family opened the door to Ukrainian refugee. We didn't know who these guys are, what exactly happens. But I also was really happy to see that the president and the government did everything possible. Of course, we were not prepared for that. But happily, non-Ukrainian refugees stayed in the street. Everybody got a shelter and a plate of food in simple conditions, but it was done. And I was really happy. I didn't see hate. I had seen hate against Ukrainians only in these Russian chats saying that Ukrainians come to Moldova to swim in pools for free or to have food for free. These stupid narratives again. Otherwise, all Moldovans were providing help and understanding that our neighbors have a problem. And also, all Moldovans mainly were saying, we don't want the war. So they still do not want the war. Moldova is peaceful, but it is important that the government leads them and explains them well. What does it mean to be peaceful? You have to cooperate and provide help when it is needed to the person that is attacked, not to stay apart from the victim. And I think this good cooperation between Maia Sandu and Zelensky looks good. When you look at the pictures when they meet, there is a lot of likes and a lot of comments, which means society likes this, and it mainly works well.
Alina, speaking about the impact of the war, we know that thousands of Ukrainian refugees came to Moldova, and of course it's natural that some things changed in the cities of Moldova, economically as well. Some probably prices have not skyrocketed, but maybe doubled, I don't know. Could you explain a little bit how actually this life changed in Moldova economically because of the war?
It changed dramatically, of course. Moldova was never very sustainable financially and economically. That's why Moldova is going on the European path to develop economy and to bring investments from European sides, from big to help create new jobs and factories and whatever that will bring more financial life. The war started just after the pandemic. And after the pandemic, the economy was already affected, And then the war came with inflation, with fear of any investment to come, because the war was not in Moldova, but from time to time the Russian drones are falling down on Moldova. From time to time we see that it happens even in Romania, in Poland. So investors will not come to a poor place which is totally unsecure, because we also discussed so often if Moldova has any capacity of protection, and we are not very well with the capacity of military protection. So economy could not develop. Also, Moldova decided to stop buying any Russian gas. It is a great thing. We are not anymore blackmailed by Russia. But for one period of time, and who knows how it will develop, the prices for energy increased, and the prices will not go down. And also it is good that Ukrainian refugees come, so we have more population and we have to find more places to work, and we have to somehow include these Ukrainians, but they are mainly women with children, and women with children have to take care of the children. They can't now produce something. They are not investors.
The money is also coming, in the way that some people are coming with the money, including like buying houses or buying stuff in Moldova.
A number of rich Ukrainians, I don't know how many, but Ukraine is big, Moldova is small, and they managed to buy many properties, to rent many apartments. Actually, some of them opened also restaurants. And there is a problem for Moldovans with the modest salary, because now, even for reporters in our newsroom, the rent is skyrocketing. The rent is very high in price. So the reporters came to me and said, you have to increase my salary, because I give all the salary now for renting a small apartment. And young people, yes, they have to rent. They can't buy. And even to buy it, is the price doubled. And we understand that this is a part of what happened to Ukraine. Some people with money had to invest in something. They had the right and permission and possibility to buy blocks and apartments here, and they did so. But it affected many Moldovans with average salaries, let's say.
I have to say, frankly, that it's the same situation in Ukraine. Parts of the country are incomparable, in prices. For example, to rent or buy property in Lviv or in the western part is sometimes incomparable to other parts, which is, of course, the effect of the war. But I wonder if Russia tried to somehow to weaponize this narrative, that the refugees are coming and they're bringing problems.
And of course, there is a lot of comments in Telegram channels that Ukrainians are rich, they are laundering money here, they took, dear Moldovans, they took your happiness and your apartments. Why they don't stay there at war to fight? They came to you and took whatever you have, so it doesn't look very nice. And from time to time, we see very expensive cars with Ukrainian number plates. And again, it might be, like 10 cars or 20, let's say 100 of these cars, not a million. But it is enough that someone makes a picture of a fashionable car with Ukrainian numbers near a fashionable hotel. And then they say, look, Ukrainians are here. They have lots of money. They have fun in expensive hotels. But you stupid Moldovans pay to them the rent and make them even rich. Of course, here we have to have clear figures, how many Ukrainians, who is doing what, who is... we don't want this rhetoric, because we know for sure that there are many poor Ukrainians who came. We have elderly Ukrainians who sit in Moldovan villages. They have very little money, and we have a lot of examples of women with children who are here, who do not have those expensive cars and everything. Life is complex. Moldovans have rich and poor, Ukrainians have rich and poor, and Russia is using these little details to make people angry.
Alina, I have a question now about the, what's coming next for Moldova. We understand that with these results, PAS and Maia Sandu has a chance to form a majority in the parliament. Because Moldova is a parliamentary republic, it means that she will have probably enough instruments to keep on her policy. But also the pro-Russian bloc is also forming quite a reasonable force in the parliament. They will still have enough votes to, to make things complicated. So what is coming for Moldova, and what do you think, what are the lessons that Maia Sandu and her political force have learned over these two campaigns, very rough campaigns, which were basically on the brink, of losing, but still they won?
Now we have that problem. We were afraid that Russia will take the parliament and the government, and it was the big fear. Now we have another fear, that to do a good job being in the government today is extremely difficult. We have inflation, we have poor country, we have not very much growing economy, we do not have investments because security is still not there. We don't have big industrial things, we don't have big anything. It will be still hard to develop a good growing economy. People will still look and analyze and think, do I live better or is this government right? Also, it will be really difficult to form a government with the best professionals in Moldova, because if you are a good professional, you go to make money somewhere. Because if you are not corrupt, you don't make money from the governmental position. You make money in the government only if you steal money. Otherwise, you receive a modest salary, but have to work very hard for this poor and difficult nation and difficult situation. So it will be difficult to find best people. If you don't find best people, you don't have the best job done. From another point of view, we will have in the parliament 45 pro-Russian, mainly pro-Russian guys who will have nothing to do because they now any of their law will not accept it. So they don't have too much work to do. They will just come to play on your nerves. They will just come every single day to the parliament to make noise and to bring Russian agenda to the people and to go around Moldova telling, look, it is still bad. You are still poor because Europe is doing that. You have gays. You have I don't know what. People are still migrating. Ukrainians are coming. Drones are falling. I already know what they will say. And it will be an easy job done on Moldovan money because those still pro-Russian politicians will get a salary to come and to do nothing. So it's not correct, in a way it's not right to have some people to work with little money to do the hardest job and others to receive also money from Moscow to criticize and to bring fakes and to make people nervous.
Yes, but you had a very interesting idea about the way the law enforcement in Moldova was forced to take some action, including after your investigations. We also have seen, this miraculous extradition of Vlad Plahotniuc just a couple of days before the elections, which I also have a question. Why do you think this happened just right before the elections? Who helped with this and how could it be possible? But with all that, the feeling of justice among Moldovans, which is also a key thing apart from economy, do you think that there was some lessons learned and there will be more action from the government?
Yeah, we have to say that the justice reform that started when previous government came into place, it was ambitiously announced and they started with vetting every candidate and so on. It worked not so easy. This reform didn't provide results till this year. And there was a lot of criticism. And when looking at why it didn't work, there are so many factors, but one of them was, we have to be very correct because it is about justice and Maia Sandu should not get involved at all in the process. Of course, the president should not get involved, but at least she could ask questions. Where is the result of justice? No, I won't ask, because they should not understand that the president makes pressure on anything. So without pressure, it didn't work. After the last elections, the society really criticized the justice reform. And they started to work a bit faster and more, let's say, aggressive. They arrested a couple of guys. They started some cases in the judicial. They arrested Gutul and finally convicted Gutul. She is pro-Russian leader of Gagauzian region, being accused and convicted for laundering Russian money in elections. And now, when they arrested Plahotniuc in Greece, of course, it was a huge an explosion in the society. Now what? Is Moldovan system capable to have Plahotniuc in the country and to... And everybody was looking at what the system will say. And I remember the first day when it happened, Maia Sandu said, now the judicial system should show what they are capable to. I think if Moldovan system would request the Greeks, please keep him still there, because he might be convicted in Greece too. He was arrested having, I don't remember, 15 foreign passport. And this is a crime against European Union and a crime against Greece too, because he had also a fake Greek passport. And I thought that he will first be convicted from Greek authorities for doing that illegal thing against Greece or maybe against other EU countries. And I was surprised that he was sent home early, actually before elections. And I had seen that Moldovan authorities even changed the head of the jail where he is staying now. So some preparation happened. And now we see that there are cases in the judicial court. Actually, every day he is refusing to come, but the judges just discuss the case and go on.
Yes, just for our listeners to quickly explain, Vlad Plahotniuc is a Moldovan oligarch, we can say pro-Russian oligarch and politician who had different thoughts on how to make Moldova closer to Russia, including, as far as I remember, federalization of Moldova and other brilliant ideas. And he was also involved in this groundbreaking criminal case in Moldova of stealing 1 billion from Moldova. And now is there actually a hope that this case of stealing 1 billion from Moldova will be actually at least partially, solved, and people will hear who were involved and some justice will come?
Maybe the more important than money, because the billion was stolen in 2014, so more than 10 years ago. Of course, it is a tragedy for our economy, but it was 10 years ago. But the sense of justice might cost even more. People want to see a conviction, a clear conviction of a corrupt guy, and he was the oligarch and the head of everything. So I think if people first of all see that he is convicted according to the law to respond for what he did, and then it is confiscated, some of his houses or whatever he still have, because the money in a way lost the address. They were transferred from an account to another and they were spent during 10 years. But also I had seen cooperation of Moldova with European countries. For instance, Plahotniuc had houses and goods in Switzerland, in London, in other places. So those goods were seized. And we see that European countries now accept to return those goods to the countries. Like some of the goods will send to Ukraine and to others. And we expect that oligarchs' goods abroad will be sent to Moldovan budget. So better than just having back $1 billion, we want to have back our judicial system, and we want to see the corrupt guys in jail, and we want to see that the system doesn't accept any more corrupt guys.
So you will be probably also one of the outlets who will be following this case closely.
Yes, it is a nightmare now, because we have triple loads of work in a way. We have to follow the old corruption and all those cases, 10 years old or 15 years old, because nobody was punished really for 10 years and more. We have to follow actual government. We have to follow actual money, how they are spent. There is not so much, but if we don't follow, something will happen for sure. Or we have to follow Russian propaganda, which is a lot, and all Russian schemes of laundering money still through these digital armies, which is really a threat. And we have, in a way, to promote democracy and European path, because we have to explain every single day to people why it is important to go with this status of candidate. There is a lot of work. There is not just you open the door and you go to Europe. Institutions have to do a lot of work, and it should be explained to people too, because things should change. Europe, it doesn't come only with money to help you with the infrastructure or I don't know what. They have a lot of rules and standards that have to be explained to people. So it's just too much work, and I miss maybe the times when we had only one corrupt government and had to follow that corrupt government. Now we have to do much more.
Yes, I mean, we've been through hard times after the Maidan revolution, with many reforms taking place, arrests, social unrest and protests, and then and the war, of course. We can understand what it means for not a huge newsroom, to be in such a mess and so much work, but still your guys doing such a great job, and you are more than 20 years now. So you have a huge experience in keeping up the good work. But let me quickly go back to the Russian question. I wonder, in Ukraine, we got rid of Russian media. It was a decision of the government Security Council to prohibit the Russian social media, the Russian TV networks and everything, basically the Russian informational space, years and years ago, which was also a contradictory decision in Ukraine at that time, but it showed its result now as we're looking back. Is it still all the Russian propagandistic channels and governmental channels, they are still available in Moldova, right? So people are still watching the Russian networks.
When you take a decision, you have to look not only at the situation today, but you have to have a vision for tomorrow. So Moldovan government blocked a number of TV stations that were coming from Moscow. But those owners just changed the address, and they might put less content from Moscow, but from time to time they make it, because they just moved from an office to another, or from a name of TV to another that appeared just during the night. But it is, let's say, a smaller problem. At least a Moldovan Audiovisual Council managed to clean a bit the TV space. But I still see a lot of radio stations. They have to clean this too. They blocked some web pages. Authorities blocked some web pages that are explicitly not pro-Russian, but really Russians, like Sputnik. But there are new web pages appearing every single day, and this is something you can't control. And then we have social media. There is not so much people staying on web pages anymore. People stay on social media every day. And then, unfortunately, Moldova being a small country, none of the tech giants have an office in Moldova. So you don't have with whom to talk about, and they do not listen. If you remember, maybe last year, Durov, the head of or the owner of Telegram, made a comment that French authorities, together with Moldovan, asked him to block some Moldovan channels, something like that. there is a lot of bad things happening on Telegram. There is no integrity. And there is a lot of Russian money spent on channels on Telegram. And everybody has access. Every Moldovan has access on Telegram. And just after the elections, in the first press conference, yesterday, Maia Sandu declared that this year she had no communication at all with Telegram, or Telegram didn't respond at all to request of Moldovan state to block Russian wild propaganda. So how do you do in these conditions? It's the only way to become members of EU and under EU umbrella to fight together for the safe digital space. Otherwise, I don't know how do you do, because the other dangerous channels for Moldova is TikTok, and it is again with a Chinese owner, but also bad things happen on Facebook and on YouTube with the American owners, but nobody has an office in Moldova. They don't care. They care only to have money, and Russia pumps money through those platforms to provide and promote their propaganda and their toxic messages.
Alina, what about Transnistria and the role of the people in Transnistria in both campaigns, and specifically in this and the last campaign, parliamentary campaign? How does it actually look like?
It looks strange. Because from the legal point of view, any person living in Transnistrian region is the citizen of Moldova. For years and years, they kept having that Transnistrian passport, which doesn't help them to go anywhere to have anything. Also, they had Russian passports. After Russia attacked Ukraine, I had seen a long line of cars coming from Transnistrian region to Chisinau because they wanted to be safe. And then I had seen all these years long lines of Transnistrian people coming to Moldovan offices to get Moldovan documents, passport, because this passport offers them a lot of freedoms, including the right to vote. But living in Transnistria, you have a Moldovan passport with the right to vote, but you do not have the information to know who is the candidate, what this politician does in Moldova, what do you want to choose. So they get these passports with total freedom, but then if they do not have information, they are organized by those pro-Russian channels saying, go to vote for the pro-Russian candidate, which is totally wrong. I know we have to respect all the rights, but having a right without information, it's sometimes you damage yourself and you damage democracy. So this year they voted prominently for pro-Russian bloc. A part of them, on the second place, it was the pro-European main party. So Moldova has to do something to explain them. You have to get information and right to vote, or maybe. But it is really difficult because you can't put a border and say, show me if you are informed. And what does it mean?
No, of course, it doesn't work like that. This is why free media and freedom of speech is, crucial part of free elections. Alina, very quickly, probably my last question to you about your last trip to Ukraine. You came to Ukraine, spent some time here, shortly even, but what were your impressions and your ideas after this trip?
I was coming, of course, with the fear that there will be bombs everywhere, and with the fear that people are exhausted. And I found a lot of optimism everywhere. Even, of course, I had seen sad moments with these cemeteries, with these portraits on the Maidan, with these people who lost their beloved ones. I had seen more optimism than here. I came just so much inspired, seeing how much people build every single day. There is everything building, from road repairings, new buildings, doing journalism, selling goods, doing everything. So the life is very active. And I was really inspired, and that was the message I put in a story when I came back. Ukraine is not a place where the war takes place. Ukraine is a place where Europe is built little by little, because I had really a feeling of being in Europe there. People are optimistic, people are working, people are building, people support each other. It's a pity that this war doesn't stop, but I hope very much. And I benefited from 3 peaceful nights there. I understood you had important American and European guests all the 3 nights, each guest another night. And my proposal is to all European leaders just to come every single day to Ukraine and to help those people to have a good night, and then in the morning they will build even much better future.
Yeah, we have this joke with the competition of which city gets another, European or American senior politician to stay overnight, so the city would also sleep. I mean, it's sad, but it's also funny at the same time, because you need to laugh sometimes to keep things going. Alina, thank you so much. Thanks so much for your analysis and for your work. And I wish you and Zerulda Garda strength and optimism and many, many, many more incredible stories that you guys are capable of producing. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy to get in contact as often as possible. And we really want to cooperate with Ukrainian media and to promote peace and get rid of Russian criminals. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!